Welcome to This Organized Life. If you're a mom, wife, or coffee lover seeking advice on how to reduce clutter and reclaim time, look no further than your host, Lori Palau, founder of Simply Be Organized and author of Hot Mess, a practical guide to getting organized. For a lot of people, clutter is their dirty little secret, but it doesn't have to be. Each week, we will share practical tips, chat with experts, and provide strategies on how to keep you organized. I hope that by sharing our stories, you feel a little less alone and more empowered to tackle the areas that are holding you back. So let's get started.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of This Organized Life podcast. I am your host, Lori Palau. And guys, I wanted to ask you before we get into things, what your thoughts are of our tip of the week. We've been hearing from people that they're really enjoying it. If you are new to our show, we have always, since the start of our show, dropped episodes on Thursdays. And those are our long form episodes where we have a guest and we dive into the nitty gritty of things and really unpack it. But sometimes people don't have a whole 45 minutes to an hour and they just want, like, give me something actionable to go. And so we just started this second drop. So we're now dropping 2 episodes a week. So Mondays are our short form tip of the week episodes. And it's going to be, they're all under like 10 minutes or less. Maybe a couple might be like under 15. But either way, just short, something that either is going on in my life, a tip that I do, something that's going on that I just want to share with you. And the goal with this tip of the week is to really just give you some extra boost of motivation and inspiration as you go about your week. And then, of course, on Thursdays, we'll continue to drop our episodes. So just make sure if you're new to our show, click the subscribe button here, YouTube, Spotify, wherever you're listening. But I want to get back to today's episode because this is one that I've been really, really wanting to do for a while. And I've been talking to our guest, who I'm going to bring out in 2 seconds, about it because it's something that we started kind of incorporating into our businesses a couple of years ago. And she's going to tell her story, but it has to do with our core values. And I've always said that we all have values, things that are important to us in our families, in our work, things that we look for, but we don't always take the time to necessarily articulate them. They're just beliefs that we have. And sometimes we do articulate them, like we know that we value X, Y, and Z. But specifically when it comes to our relationship with stuff, our relationship with clutter, how does that relate to what our values are? Does the stuff that we're doing and that we're bringing in have a direct correlation, either conflicting or compatible with what our values are? And so joining me today is my friend Kate Bosch. And Kate, you might remember, she's been on our show before. She's also one of our SBO partners. She's a certified professional organizer up in Rhode Island, Kate Bosch Professional Organizing. We'll link to her. And she's been doing a lot of work surrounding understanding her core values and how that relates to her business and how she conveys that to her clients. And I love everything that she's been doing. I said, we need to get you on the show to talk about this and get our listeners thinking about their stuff in a different way, from a different perspective. So without further ado, let me welcome my good friend, Kate Bosch, back to the show. Welcome.
Thank you, Lori. It's good to talk to you again. I'm excited about this. This is a fun topic. Yeah.
So tell our listeners, if they are new and they haven't listened to your past episode, just give them the 411 about like who you are, what you do, all the things.
So I'm just starting my 8th year in business as a professional organizer. I am a mom of 2 bigs, as you say. I have daughters who are 15 and 20, and married to my husband, whose art is behind me. He's an artist, and been here in Rhode Island for a couple of decades now, and it's exciting. I'm eager to talk about this because I feel like this core values discussion and thought that we've been doing has really just deepened my work with clients lately. In the past couple of years, I've been thinking about it. So
yeah. And your approach, just for people listening out there, and we talk about this a lot on the show, as you know, there's a spectrum of people in the organizing space.
Sure.
You know, people that range from working with hoarders, like my friend Matt Paxton,
Right.
to people that are on the spectrum of like the home edit that are all about, not that they don't want to declutter, but it's very much an aesthetic, results driven look. And anywhere in between, right? And so we really want to shine light on all of the different fits out there.
Exactly. And it's really important to find, like, I recently had someone reach out to me about organizing, and we realized I'm not the right fit for her because she wants the kind of organizer that I call it, like a do it for me organizer. And I'm a do it with you organizer.
Totally.
So I'm not the right fit for her. And, you know, hopefully she will find the right organizer for her, but there's someone for everyone. So.
Yeah. And for anybody listening out there who either is thinking about starting a professional organizing business or is a professional organizer, you know, when you're first starting out, you're sort of a generalist. Like you're just kind of like, let me see what works, what I like, what I don't like. And some people be like, I really like packing and unpacking. And other people are like, I really hate packing and unpacking. And so the beauty of this industry is you really can niche yourself. And like with any industry, and I say this is my recruiter hat, you know, in my past life, I was a recruiter, is when you're doing something that you love and that you're like excited about this type of a client. And listen, I get it. In life, sometimes we're going to have jobs that are like, oh, this doesn't jazz me up. But if you know that you're like, I really enjoy rolling up my sleeves and working with somebody one-on-one to kind of peel back the layers, which is what you do, and I'm good at that, then you can start to attract those clients, and you can use that in your messaging and branding to let people know, this is who I am, this is who I serve, and this is how I can help you. And that really lays into this whole conversation about core values. But sometimes you have to really do some self-discovery to kind of figure out what those values are.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I feel like you kind of launched me on that road to discover what those core values are and how that informs the work that I do with clients. And I do love I love a checklist. I love getting things done. So when we started talking about core values, I was like, I don't know, it's kind of touchy feely for me, you know, but it really has ended up being a huge benefit, like feeling like I understand myself and my motivations better, and also why that helps with the work that I do with clients. Because it is, I love it when a job, I mean, I have lots of different clients. I love that they're all different. But it's about connecting with them and getting to know what their goals are, what they want out of the organizing process, and how to help them achieve that. So
yeah. Absolutely. And I'm wondering just if you could, for anybody listening out there, how are you defining like your core values? Like where are we even starting? Well, let's even just go very granular of like, what does that even mean?
Yeah. So, I mean, and I didn't like go and look up a dictionary definition or anything. For me, it's just about like your core values are the concepts, the ideas, the things that drive you, that motivate you in your life. Like what really resonates with you? What makes you do what you do? I guess, if that makes sense.
Yes. And it has to also, in my opinion, it also has to do with kind of like your like belief, what you want to, what is really important to you. So like in terms of you value relationships, you value hospitality, you value, like things that are like important to you that are maybe just like, that a lot of times, especially for people that are very analytical, like you and me, you just don't stop, because again, like you said, it taps into that kind of emotional side where that's not our default.
Right. Exactly. And I want to say it's beyond like, because there are many things that I value, right? Like you mentioned hospitality and relationship, like those are things that like, I have a friend who, one of her core values that she's identified for her business is truth. It's like, well, of course I value truth. Right. It's just not the core values are these sort of the kind of words or we define them as words, but it's the things that really rise to the top that you go, yeah, that is really what is driving me. And of course, there are many other values.
Totally. Yes.
Things that we value, things that come into the mix. But what's like at the the root of everything you do and why you do it. And so I think that's where the core values are.
And yeah, absolutely. And in the exercise that we started doing, and then you continued on this expedition on your own, is we were looking at, for people listening out there that might want to explore this, we were looking at like, let's pick your top 5, kind of like your top 5 values. And we started with like this list of all different kinds of words, it was like family, beliefs, faith, like all these words. And you originally are looking at it and you're like, okay, well, there's more than half of these that I could identify.
Yeah, like they're all good. They're all good. And then I started with the shoulds, like, oh, I should have that as a core value, or I should. And then I had to like release that and be like, nope, I'm going to really see what here comes to the fore. And I think starting with that word list was key because if you start from, thin air, you don't have any direction to go in. You need some limits, some boundaries to kind of help direct you and direct your thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. And so for people that are listening out there, they're like, okay, I might either have a job in corporate America, or maybe I'm a stay-at-home parent, or I don't have kids and I'm an empty net, whatever. This is something that you can identify for both your personal life and your professional life, right? It's not an either or, it could be a both and.
It's a both and for me, it came to be these sort of words that identify my core values are specific to me. So it's in my personal life and in my professional life, and in anything that I do, I bring these values with me. So for me, it defines.
No, go ahead. I was going to say, I'm ready for you because I know everyone's like, okay, what are they? So are you ready to? Yeah. So I feel like let's share them, because that'll also give some people some context, and then we can unpack a little bit about what that looks like in the practical, right? Because again, all these words are great, but we're all about like, how can we put this into practical action to help you?
Right. So the 5 that I defined, and it's funny because they just happen to be, I call them in my head, it's my 5 C's, because it was all C words, and it's just what jumped out at me, and it's just what really felt right. So it's connection, creativity, competence, confidence, and contentment.
I'm writing them down because I want to put them in show notes.
And
Competence, confidence, and what was the last one?
Contentment.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I love them. Okay. So do you mind if we go through kind of each one of them and just talk a little bit about how you came up with that and what that looks like?
Yeah. That'd be great. So, I do have a sentence too that I put together that we can, it's sort of like how they weave into my business. And so it's basically that like, as a professional organizer, I connect with my clients, and we find creative solutions to help them so that they can develop competence and confidence in the way that they organize, so they can find contentment in their homes. So
I love that. So and a lot of the work that I am doing and that I've been doing has to do with communication. And we talk about personality types, and we talk about communication styles. And really what I love about it is that, for so many people, especially when it comes to clutter, it's very emotional and it's very broad stroke.
Yeah.
And even the term professional organizer, it's broad stroke. People think that you're going to come in and do A, B, and C, or X, Y, and Z. And so the more specific that we can be with either our expectations as the person hiring a professional organizer, or if you're not hiring somebody, the expectation of what you're looking for, what you're trying to achieve in your own home, or as a business owner, how you can best serve your clients, the more specific that you can get, the less conflict you're going to have and the greater success rate, because again, there's going to be clear expectations on both sides, and you're going to hopefully be attracting the right people that are on the same page. So I love that. And I love it because it also helps you to then, some people call it a mission statement or whatever, but it gives you this language to be able to say, this is what I do and how I specifically serve people in the capacity.
Right. So it helps me when I'm talking to a prospective client to communicate what what I'm about, what my approach is about, and if I'm going to be the right fit for them, if I'm what they're looking for in a professional organizer. And sometimes they don't even know they're like, oh, it can get like, we're going to get into the why of my clutter. I'm like,
Yes.
and that can be exciting for someone to realize like, oh, it's not just about the stuff. It's about my relationship with the stuff. So yeah.
Absolutely. I love it. Okay. So let's go a little bit deeper because I would just love to talk a little bit more about each one of those because I think they're really important. So let's start with the first one, connection.
Yeah. So that one had to be first for me because I'm all about like, you mentioned relationship before as a value. It's relationship, but it's more about making that really seeing the other person and figuring out what makes them tick and how we can connect, where that bridge is, between their goals and what's driving them and where I fit in with that. And so whether that's with a client or even like with my kids, forming that connection, in general, forming connections with people is just is important to me. So, and all about seeing them.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. Okay. Creativity.
Well, I've always been a creative.
I was like,
that's just, my husband's an artist. I have always been an artisan crafts person. My previous career was as a milliner, which is a hat maker. So, and ever since I was, it's funny, like as far back as I can remember, I have early memories of one, organizing my toy box as a kid, as like a really little kid.
That's
and
so
then
funny.
Also just making stuff. So always being creative and making things and so in organizing, like coming up with those out of the box solutions, the creativity and I find that also helps inspire clients to realize like they can be creative too. They don't only need to rely on me to come up with these solutions. They're like, there's no right way of doing organizing. So if they come up with a wacky solution that works for them, that's great. And it helps them to be, to learn how to find that delight in their own creativity.
I love it because it gives people permission to not feel like they have to be so rigid or it has to be this way. Like this is the way, even though we continually preach like there's no right one size fits all and there's not a right way or wrong way. I think in our minds, especially if this is something that's an insecurity or a pain point you start to have self-doubt. So if anybody's been like, and you could fill in the blank about anything, it could be about gardening or exercise or cooking. If this is something that you don't feel confident in, you're going to look to somebody to say, am I doing this the right way? Or am I making a mistake? And I love the fact that you're like, hey, you can experiment with this recipe, try something.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think like with clients that is born out of that connection that I make with them. Like I have one client who I know is like, she's very, she's just really into nature and she loves to create these, like she has interesting things in her home and she'll love to like just create a little vignette in her house of like some stuff. Like it might be like a feather that she found and an antique glass, piece or something. And so one of the things we did when we were organizing is in her basement, we gave her a whole shelf of like, we called it her home goods store. So it's like her place where she can go and find her create, little things. She's like, oh, okay. So it's not cluttery to do this. It's okay. I'm like, it's great. This is how she wants to create a fun and interesting home for herself and her family. So yeah, there's not.
I love that.
One way.
I love that because again, a lot of people would think, oh, somebody's going to just come in and tell me to throw all this stuff out. Right. Or that this isn't, but like, again, but you corralled it and organized it and had a specific zone. So it still had a place. And I love that you call it the home goods because I call that too. But so my clients, if they have a lot of like, let's say you like to have seasonal decor, and I call, okay, this is the home goods section where I'm going to swap out my pillows or I'm going to swap out
that's exactly it.
Whatever I'm going to do. So yes, I think everyone needs a little home goods section. So
I think so. And I think it's, and again, it was like based on what I like knew of her too, and of how she wanted it organized and things. And so to help draw that out from her so that she can set that home goods section up in the way that makes sense to her, to the way she uses it and to her brain. So
exactly. I love it. I love it. Okay. Next one is competence.
yeah, competence is an important thing to me. I've always been the kind of person that like I like to know things and learn how to do things and learn how to do a thing well. And so then it becomes in my business important to me to also teach my clients these skills that they can be, if people's like think that they're just a disorganized mess and they can't do this. No, you can actually, it's a skill you can learn and you can become competent at this. And then I'm going to just launch right into confidence because
for
I
sure.
think they flow, because once you're competent at something, you develop confidence.
Totally.
And so I've seen it a lot with clients that they feel nervous, anxious when I first come to work with them, and they're kind of defeated. They feel a little bit like, I don't know what I'm doing here in my house. I don't know how to get it together. Why am I such a mess? Why is this so awful that I have to call in an organizer? And instead, it's about helping them learn those skills. And by the time, we've had a couple of sessions, they're starting to feel, you can see them like they get a little taller. They have a smile on their face and they're feeling confident about their ability to do this. And
absolutely. And again, I keep thinking back to the parts of my life where I'm more insecure, right? Like I'm not as naturally intuitively confident. And when I start to practice something and start to work that muscle figuratively or literally, and then all of a sudden you start to build some traction, and they flow really in. And we talk so much about the clutter pitfalls here, and we talk about that indecision and that a lot of people don't know what to do. And that comes from that insecurity and that fear of making a mistake. And when you're confident, you are more willing to take certain risks and try things, because a lot of decluttering for people is just so overwhelming because it seems like it's very permanent. Like this is a very big decision. And when you start to make these incremental changes and start to say, oh, there is a lot of gray area, I think it allows people to not feel like they have to white knuckle through things.
Right. There's gray area. And there's also like just the fact that it's about the way you want to do it. It's not about the way I want it done. It's not about the way someone on Instagram says it should be done or should look. And so, and I think confidence comes out of, this is a part of that. We talk about this with kids a lot, is that earned self-esteem, like they should have self-esteem because they've done something worth esteeming. Well, when you build your competence, your skills, and become good at something, then you have that natural confidence that comes out of like, yeah, I got this. I know I've been doing this and I can keep doing it. And so I'm confident in my ability to, whether it's organize and maintain my home or anything else that you're trying to achieve.
Sure.
Yeah.
I love it. And then your last one is contentment.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I do. And I think that's also in terms of the organizing world born out of that. Well, so now it's Instagram that we're all looking at, and Pinterest. And before it was, real simple on Martha Stewart Living and stuff. And there, I noticed in myself that, because I used to always get those magazines, back a decade ago or so. And I stopped subscribing because I realized that they were just making me feel discontent with what I had in my home and the decisions I'd made about the way my house looks. And it was making me always want more and have to try to, oh, it's not good enough what I have, or it's not enough. It's not current. It's not whatever. And so finding for me that journey to feeling content with my decisions and with my home and what I'm doing was really important. And I love to be able to help my clients find their path to that too. I had a client several years ago who she just loved Victorian style decor, anything like pretty and pink and like ornate and
doilies and lace.
It was totally her thing, and she just loved it. It just transported her, to another realm, and she loved decorating her house like that. And her sister, I think it was her sister-in-law, had made some comments about how her house is so dated, or it's so, some disparaging comments. And she was really down about that, and sort of was looking to me when I came in to help her organize and clear the clutter. I was telling her, this process is really about drawing out your aesthetic and your values and what you really love in your home and highlighting that. And nobody can tell you what your house should look like if you don't like. I said I could never see you living in a mid-century modern, she would hate that, or a minimalist home. She likes to be surrounded by things that are a little bit frilly, a little bit pretty. And I said, there's nothing wrong with that.
Right. Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
feeling content. So she did end up getting to that place of really feeling content with her choices and with what she was doing with her home.
I love that, because again, and one of my favorite quotes is, comparison is the thief of joy. And I think we can all relate with, thank you, Teddy Roosevelt, but I think we can all, whether it's, like you said, whether it's Instagram or Pinterest or your neighbor down the street or whatever, we have these false narratives, right, that we tell ourselves. And whether somebody else, we think somebody's got it all together or whatever it is. And this is so personal. Organizing really is personal. And if you're somebody that enjoys being surrounded by tchotchkes and you like that stuff, that's fine. As long as it's not a pain. To me, it's always when it becomes a pain point. That's when it's a problem. When it's impacting, when it has a negative impact on your life, whether it's, you're just unhappy with it, or it's affecting you're late paying your bills because you don't have a system, or, whatever this problem is. But if you're happy with it, your standard of organization doesn't have to be somebody else's. And I love that. And that has to go back with helping people to kind of figure out what their core values is. So I guess that's kind of my next question is, you've been, I know, doing a lot of this work to kind of identify this, articulate it, work it into your business. So now that you have that foundation set, is it something that you are intentional about with your clients? Like, we're going to bring this up, or is it just something more organic that just kind of shows up?
I think it's the latter. I mean, it's on my mind. And so it's been I think about these things and how, when I'm working with clients, and I think that connection piece is where I really seek to develop a rapport with clients so that I understand them and understand where they're coming from. And then, rather than specifically saying, okay, we're going to talk about your core values now, what are they? And it's more of a working with clients, I observe them, and I can start to understand where their core motivations are coming from. And then and then as part of the process, I can reflect that back to them, and that helps them figure out, it helps inform the organizing process. Like, for instance, I have a client that we're working on organizing. She's a lot of boxes of things that were inherited from her mother when her mother passed away. And then also stuff that she and her husband had just put in the attic and, forget about it. And just all of these old family mementos, memorabilia, papers, photos, all of this stuff. And we're going through it, and it's pretty emotional, but her goal is family history is important to her, but it's important to her that she pass that along to her son in a way that will convey what was meaningful about it to her.
Okay.
And then also not be a burden to him, so that it's obvious so that he doesn't have to she doesn't want him to inherit several room loads of boxes like she did.
Yes.
She wants to be able to kind of weed out what's not important and, put together bits of what are important from her side of the family, from her husband's side of the family, so that her son will have this, that she can then maybe even take him down there and say, oh, should we look through my father's box? like, I can show you what was important about him.
Yeah. Like to me, as you're talking, the phrase that kind of came into my mind is you want this generational stuff to like tell a story,
Right.
because for the future generations that weren't there to like live it in real time. So you want to be able to pass these traditions down in digestible ways so that it makes sense. And then that legacy can continue.
Right.
And when you're just being handed cartons and boxes and bins of stuff, it doesn't have it gets diluted, right? Like it might mean something to you because you know, but then as that continues to go down the lane, the messaging gets lost if it isn't organized in a way so that it makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that story, it's going to depend on, like I said, this client has her part of a core value and motivation for her is that legacy and family history.
I love that
so
legacy.
She wants to tell that story in that way. Whereas another client may not have that same motivation, and they may be, either it's less sentimental, or they may not feel that that's, for whatever reason, that's that important to them, or they want to keep only the things that I don't know, that they find interesting. Like they may have a value in like preserving an antique or something, whereas this client would have more value in preserving a letter, that said stuff. So it's about the way that I try to connect with the client to figure out what are their core motivations, and why are we storing this? Why are we keeping these things, whether it's the tchotchkes on the mantle or the mementos in the storage room? What's motivating them to keep that, and how do they want to interact with it?
I love it. I think so. If our listeners are out there and they're saying this is great, whether they're working with, because I'm sure there's people who are like, oh, I just want to call you and have you come work with me. And not everybody's going to be in the Rhode Island area, but if somebody's listening out there, if they're going to try to embark on their own doing this, or maybe they're going to look to hire somebody, where would you have somebody begin if they're like, I really want to start to articulate this? Because again, I know what's important to me. I know there are things that are, that I value, but like, I really want to be able to kind of identify that. What's your advice or strategy for somebody that wants to kind of tie this into their process?
We'll tie this into getting their own home organized and things.
So, their own core value. Like, I think if somebody's listening going, you know what, if I were able to kind of narrow it down and really articulate that, how do I even begin to do that? Because now I know I just have a lot of stuff. And
well, I mean, so first of all, I can work with people virtually. And so that's one option if you're not in my area. And the other thing is, I think I would just start searching for lists of words like we had at that partner gathering.
I'll link to Sarah Dalton's because she's great.
Yeah,
Sarah Dalton,
I think just a big list of words. And just even, I am super digital, but this one I'd print it out and start making little check marks and little notes, and just have it sitting there for a while. Like, you need to sit with this for a little while and start thinking about like, okay, which ones jump out at you? And I liked narrowing it down to 5. I did recently hear someone who said you should narrow it down further to 3, but then I thought, like, no, I don't want to declutter anymore. I'm done. I want a little extra. So whatever, it doesn't have to be a specific number. It can be whatever number, like, you don't want to get like 10, because that's going to be a little unwieldy. We're really trying to figure out the core. So think about these words and what's jumping out at you, and how they thread through your life. Like, I feel like that creativity thread is an easy one for me to see throughout my life, and competence, and think about how you have demonstrated those values throughout your life and in different aspects of your life, from your personal to your professional, maybe when you were in school, and those kinds of things. And then you can start thinking about, okay, now that I've I've got these ideas. How does that impact the way I look at, this, whatever it is, this, even the stuff in my desk drawer.
Right. Right.
Like,
And
is
you
it
can go
serving me?
and you can go like macro or super micro on it.
Yeah.
And we talked we touched on it kind of in a different way, but when we had on, I don't know if you listened to the episode with the coziness consultant. Oh gosh, she was great. And it was on at the end of last year. And we were talking about like, how does my space reflect this? And so again, I think when you're able to finally get to the point that you have and we'll just again use the number 5 for argument's sake, we have your 5 core values that you identify down, then you can look again, not from a blaming or pointing fingers, but go, okay, so if this is really my value, am I leading by example? Like, is my house, is my stuff, are the things I'm doing, is my calendar, if you're like, I really value, I don't know,
time with friends, time or something. Yeah. And you've got your only work in your calendar. Right. Or also like, how is my home supporting those values? Like maybe hospitality is a real value for you. And I actually remember this was a story from Joshua Becker who you interviewed.
Love him.
And yes. And even though they were going on this minimalist journey, I remember that hospitality, having people over for meals was a big value for them. And so they're not super minimal in like, they don't have just one plate for each person in the family. They needed to have, enough to host people. So are you, if you value relationship or connection, then do you have a conversation area in your living room, or is there so much laundry on your couch that nobody could sit there? Like that's not supporting your value. So maybe it would be important to figure out how to clear the room. And I did this with a client too. She really she was ill and needed to be cared for in her home. And no one could sit on her furniture because there was so much stuff on her furniture. So but that was one of our first things was like, okay, you need a sitting area. You need to be able to lie on your couch and you need your friends to come over so that they can visit with you there. So that was important work.
I love that. I could talk all day about this, but we're going to have to start to wind this conversation down. Before we take our last break, tell our listeners the best way to find you, connect up with you. Obviously, like Kate said, she does work with people virtually. So if you're not in her area, you can certainly reach out to her. And of course, we'll link to all this in the show notes, but lay it on them.
Okay. So my website is the best way. So that's katebosch.org. And then Instagram is Kate Bosch Organizing. Facebook is Kate Bosch Professional Organizing. And that's pretty much where I am. I'm on LinkedIn if anyone's there.
Well, we'll link up to all the things. So again, and of course, Kate's in our network of our professional organizers who we love, support, and you can always find her as well. If you're like, I can't remember her name, but she's that one organizer, head on over to our website, but we'll link to all things Kate in our show notes. Okay. We're going to take a quick break. You know the drill. Come back with our wrap up questions. So sit tight.
Really hard because I know I read a lot and I know. But I was really proud of myself last year. I finished, and technically it was a listen to, but I think I count audio.
That counts. That totally counts.
I read the whole Bible through the Bible in a Year podcast with Father Mike Schmitz, and it was awesome. I did it, and I did the whole thing, and then I came to January 1st, and I thought, oh, what am I going to do now? And so I started it again because I just really liked it. So that was a big accomplishment.
That is. Wait, can I ask you like a personal follow-up question? Because every year I say I'm going to do it, and then I start, and I haven't done the audio. I always say I'm going to do the Bible in a year and read. I have the book. I have the Bible, and I fail. And then I wind up just not doing it. So,
well, the audio was great.
Okay.
I really like Father Mike. He's a nice fast talker, which I like. My husband can't stand fast talkers. So it's not
he would hate me. He would.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he doesn't not like fast talkers.
No, I know,
but talkers, but So, and he's very personable. So that was
Mhm.
great. There's another one that I just gave to a friend of mine, actually, if you want to read it. And it was very doable the way it broke it up, because it was like a page and a half each
Okay.
day, and it's not dated. So if you get behind, you just pick up where you left off, which was kind of
Oh,
nice. So maybe I'll
yeah.
send you a
Share
link
that
for
with.
that one. I don't remember which it was, but yeah, it was good. I mean, and the podcast is great because it's like a long one would be a half hour,
Right.
so
And you
it's
can,
not.
right. And you can do that where you're like, I'm going to go out for a walk, or I'm going to get on the treadmill, or I'm going to, I have to
Yeah,
drive
I'm
somewhere.
commuting. Yeah.
I'm commuting. Exactly.
Yep, it
So
worked.
I
So
love that.
that, and then I don't know, and then for like, I just finished a fiction of, I read, there's certain authors that I love, and Alexander McCall Smith is one of them, and he has
Okay.
this series called The Number One Ladies Detective Agency. He's got like, I mean, they're like into the 20s of this series, and it's
Okay.
set in Botswana, and I feel like it's just a real, it's like a vacation in a book. You're like transported to another world.
I
with
love
different
that you
people.
said that, because I am really bad at reading fiction. Josh, my Josh, is like big fiction guy. Like he'll like young adult fiction. He's like
Mhm.
knows what's on, the bestsellers list and Reese Witherspoon's, all that. Like I am so not that person. I just am much more like, give me a good self-help book, a good leadership book, a good entrepreneur. I don't know why, like I get drawn to that. And I always say, I'm like, I really need to do more fiction. I think it's helpful to have
Well, we'll
that
connect
balance.
later. I'll give you some lists.
Good.
And
Good.
yeah, I love fiction. And so that's what I'm usually reading is fiction. And I usually do audio of those other like businessy
Yeah,
books and stuff. That's just what works for me.
I love it.
So,
All right.
yeah.
And then our last two questions, as you know, we ask to everybody in every season. Right now in your life, where do you feel the most organized, and where do you feel like a little bit of a hot mess? Even though I feel like you have it all together right now. I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
know
you
where
think
your
so?
hot mess.
I don't know about that, but no, I think where I have it all together is that like for me, what works, and this goes back to that contentment. Like what works is to keep things minimal. Like I don't need a lot of extra stuff in like I want to be able to manage things. I don't like seeing a ton of clutter, and I don't want to have to manage like too much stuff. So, and I'm pretty good at like culling the excess, keep going through things, especially, I don't know, something about the spring. Every time I get that spring fever to like another round of decluttering, and yeah, so
I don't know
that's
about you, but I feel like
right.
not that you're old, but like I feel like the older I get, the less I'm in this season where I'm not in a season of accumulation like I was in my
Right.
30s,
Oh yeah.
I
Yeah,
am
that's what
in
I
this
talk to
of,
clients about too. It's like we're in like this is the deacquisitioning phase, like where a
totally.
museum like starts to get rid of yeah. So yeah, so it makes it easier. I mean, I don't want to have to do a million loads of laundry because I'm changing my clothes, like wearing the latest or whatever, or having to
Yes. And
doing
then
all sorts of good stuff.
I don't like ending on a hot mess, but we gotta show that you're human.
I am.
Oh,
I'm always trying to do too much. I'm always chasing the next. You know me when we
I
like. I'm always like, oh, I've
know.
got a new idea, and I want to do it, and I try
Well,
to
Kate's like
stall
me.
in.
She's like a serial volunteer person, and you're a get stuff done person, and so building in that margin. But I can say I'm gonna go on record because Kate and I have been working together one-on-one for years now, I feel like. And I have seen you really protect in a healthy way and build margin into your schedule, into your calendar, even though it still might be like your struggle point.
It's still my challenge, and it probably always will be. And like I said, I like to be busy. I like having those new ideas and chasing down. It's a matter of like, okay, focus. Like that's a fun new idea, but let's keep like putting.
Oh, trust me. I get it. We just started going to a new church, and we're sitting in, and I know some people there because we have friends that go there, but I'm not like in the know there. Like that, like the people don't know me, which is fine. And we're sitting there and the welcome team, they were like, okay, and we're building out all these new initiatives and we're needing people to do this. And Josh turns to me, he's like, don't even think about it. Cause like my normal reaction would be like, oh, I'll sign up to organize this potluck dinner, or I'll get on this.
Yeah.
And he just looked at me and he's like, just sit for a minute.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, but it's hard. So
it's really, really hard. It's really hard. And I'm really exercising my no muscle.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I got you.
So,
Kate,
thanks.
It's a pleasure. I love having you on. Thank you so much. If you're listening here and you're joining us for the first time, welcome. Make sure to click the subscribe button, follow wherever you are, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever. Let us know what you think. If you have a question, comment for either our long episodes or something for the tip of the week, definitely either leave us a comment, or I think you can go, we have a form. It's like simplybeorganized.com/questions. And you could just leave us something there, question, comment, thoughts. And we'll be back next week with another episode. I'm Lori Palau. Peace out. Thanks for tuning in. If you like this episode, please spread the love and share it with your friends. And if this is your first time joining us, make sure to click the subscribe button wherever you are listening so you never miss an episode. And while you're there, please leave us a review so other people know that our show is worth the listen. You can also find us on YouTube and Instagram at This Organized Life Podcast. And if you'd like to connect with us, you can head on over to our website at simplybeorganized.com, which is filled with tons of resources, including free downloads, checklists, links to our amazing organizing partners, and all of our digital offerings. I'll see you next week for another episode of This Organized Life.